Right, guys, so let us now turn to look into the characteristics of labor in the South African economic context. We're going to look into the characteristics that characterizes our labor. First, we're going to discuss income as a goal. The first characteristics for labor or for people to provide their labor or to avail their labor in the labor market is because they treat income as a goal. Each and every person who is economically active, they need money to buy provisions or basic goods and services in order to survive. And consequently, in order for a person to have money in any economy, in order for a person to have an income or to receive income or to have money in order to buy goods and services, that person must work. As a result, they must avail and supply their labor at the labor market. They must sell their labor at the labor in order for them to receive what? To receive income. So the first characteristics of labor is income as a goal. Secondly, what you need to understand, guys, about labor is that each and every labor available in a labor market is a part of its owner. Each and every labor that you find at the labor market, it is part of its owner. And what do we mean by that? We mean that the people doing the labor and the labor itself are one and the same. Meaning a person who is producing goods and services, who is providing the physical, mental, and psychological effort, together with that effort that he provides, are one and the same. What does this mean? That means we cannot provide a person to say, this is an employee, but the work be done by someone else. For us to say this is an employee, that employee must provide the same required labor that would make them to be considered as employees. Because employee is someone who is employed to do a particular work. Do you understand? Yes, that's what we mean that uh, labor is part of its owner. And thirdly, and the third characteristic, labor is not storable. Guys, this one is very important. Labor is not storable. If a worker is unemployed, they are not supplying labor. And as a result, they cannot store their labor to use in the future. Why? Because remember, when you talk about labor, we say it's humans' physical, mental, and psychological effort. So if a person is 30 years old, they have a certain or a degree of physical, mental, and psychological effort that they can provide in the production service, in the production process, rather. If the people are not working or they are not employed while they are 30, when they are 70, they will not be having the same physical, mental, and psychological effort that they had when they were 30. That is why when we are working or we're looking at economically active population, we looked at people aged between specifically 15 to 64. Because when a person is above 64, we don't consider them to be able to provide the sufficient physical, mental, and psychological effort that is required in the production process. We consider them to be old. So if you are not working, if you are unemployed at a particular point or a particular age, you are losing your labor and your labor is not storable. And the labor cannot be stored to say, I have this 50% labor, but I will only use it when I am 40 years old or I will use after 50 years. No, labor is not storable. Okay, right. And the fourth characteristic of labor, guys, in the South African economic context, supply of labor cannot be suddenly increased, meaning we cannot increase the supply of labor rapidly in the South African labor market. Why? Because sometimes training of labor takes time. If we are, for example, running short of teachers, running short of people who have physical, mental, and psychological effort in teaching learners. We need to wait for people who are at universities to complete a 4-year degree before they can enter the labor market. So whether we need teachers now, we can't increase supply of teachers now immediately because people need to take 4 years of qualification and training before they can enter labor market. So it often takes a while for people to enter the labor market. Hence, we say supply cannot suddenly increase, or we cannot quickly increase the supply of labor. We're still together. Those are the characteristics of labor, guys. Very important, and you must be able, in a middle order or high order questions, be able to discuss these characteristics in detail. Let us now look quickly into the importance of labor. Why do we consider labor to be important in the economy, and what is the significance of labor in the economy? And in fact, why does the economy need labor? Why is labor a need in the economy? One, guys, you need to understand, as you've done in grade 10 when you're doing production processes, production cannot take place without physical and mental effort. Production cannot take place without physical and mental effort provided by humans. I've answered a question that what do we mean that production cannot take place without physical and mental effort, while we now live in modern age where artificial intelligence is taking over and we have robotics. I indicated and I alluded to this, that even if a business uses machinery and robots or robotics to produce goods and services, that particular robotics and machinery, they still need humans to operate them. And human is the only person that possesses the mental capacity to control that particular machine or a robot. So even with robots and machines that are employed to produce, we still need the mental effort provided by humans in order to produce goods and services. Therefore, production cannot take place without labor in any economy. And secondly, an economy needs to increase its production in order to grow. We have touched briefly in grade 10 when we are talking about when we're doing the circular flow and quantitative elements, where we touched on national accounts aggregates, which I think you will explore more in detail as the most exciting part or exciting lesson in grade 12 when you do the national accounts aggregates, when you calculate the GDP and GNP and so forth. But we alluded that gross domestic product is the total value of all final goods and services produced within the borders of a country in a given period. Usually it's 1 year. Each and every country needs to earn to achieve economic growth in order to be prosperous. And economic growth, we talk about an increase in production capacity, an increase in GDP, in real GDP in particular. Okay. Right. So economy needs to grow. For economy to grow, it must increase its GDP. It must increase its production rather to achieve an increase in GDP. Therefore, it needs sustainable labor in order to grow. Meaning we need a sustainable labor. Labor is a necessity to produce goods and services that will assist the economy to grow. That is why it is important. Guys, the labor force needs to have the right number of skilled and semi-skilled labor available. This is very important. For economy to function effectively, the labor force needs to have the right number of skilled and semi-skilled available, as we have discussed above in the previously in during our lesson. And lastly, guys, the importance of labor is that a shortage of technically skilled labor is a big problem in South Africa. Therefore, we need to ensure that we invest more in labor to produce skilled labor in the South African economy. So, those are the characteristics of labor and the importance of labor in the South African economy, in any other economy in the world for that matter. So if there are any questions, please do forward them for discussion before we proceed. Are we still together?